Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking the technical foundations of enterprise networks and exploring the massive, absolutely crucial evolutionary shift in how they are actually defended today. We're going to dive into how we've moved from basic networking rules all the way up to cutting-edge, intelligence-driven cybersecurity.
To keep things structured, here is our roadmap for today. First, network protocols and architecture. Second, building the perimeter defense. Third, limits of the perimeter. Fourth, the zero trust shift. And finally, modern endpoint security. Let's jump right in.
All right, let's kick things off with a slightly terrifying question. Is your secure network already breached? I want you to really think about that because by the end of this explainer, the answer might just challenge everything you thought you knew about network safety. Honestly, it's exactly why the entire cybersecurity industry is fundamentally changing its approach.
Section 1. Network Protocols and Architecture. Okay, so to protect any network, we first have to understand the foundational rules of the road. Think of these protocols as the literal languages your devices speak. TCP, or Transmission Control Protocol, is your reliable, connection-oriented worker. It breaks data into packets and actually guarantees they arrive safely. On the flip side, you have UDP. It's lightweight, it's connectionless, and it prioritizes raw speed over guaranteed delivery, which makes it perfect for things like streaming. And then, of course, we have HTTPS, which takes the standard web traffic protocol and encrypts it to keep the conversation completely secret. Bottom line, if you don't understand these languages, you simply can't secure the conversation.
But you know what's truly fascinating? The sheer scale we are dealing with here. When we talk about IP addressing, the older IPv4 standard allowed for about 4.3 billion IP addresses, which sounds like a lot, right? Well, the new 128-bit IPv6 standard explodes that number to 340 sextillion. Yes, sextillion. To put that into perspective, that's roughly equivalent to every single grain of sand on Earth, multiplied by 1 billion. Securing a landscape of that size is just a monumental architectural task.
Moving right along to Section 2, Building the Perimeter Defense.
Traditionally, we've defended these massive networks using your classic castle and moat strategy. A firewall acts as this strict structural barrier. It sits right at the border, physically separating your trusted internal network from the wild west of the untrusted internet. And right between the two, we create a demilitarized zone, or DMZ. That's basically a buffer zone where external-facing servers, like your web and email servers, sit, so that folks on the outside can access them without ever actually touching the highly secure internal network.
But hey, a wall just isn't enough, right? You need guards. So behind that firewall, organizations deploy an IDS and an IPS. The intrusion detection system is basically your passive burglar alarm. It analyzes network traffic and just alerts the admins if it spots something sketchy. The intrusion prevention system, however, is your active security guard. It doesn't just sit there and watch. It takes proactive measures to block and tackle those threats in real time before they compromise the network.
Which brings us to Section 3, Limits of the Perimeter. So what happens to that trusty castle moat when remote employees or cloud applications actually need a secure path inside? Suddenly, that solid perimeter starts looking a lot less solid. To solve this remote access problem, we build a virtual private network, or VPN. It's essentially a three-step dance. First, encrypting the data so it can't be read if someone snoops on it. Second, tunneling, which encapsulates that data so it can travel securely over the public internet. And third, granting remote access so employees can connect to corporate resources like they were physically sitting right there in the office.
But here is the ultimate irony, and it's a big one. Those exact same encrypted tunnels and port forwarding tricks designed to keep you safe, they can be used by an attacker or even a malicious insider to bypass your egress firewalls entirely. Because the traffic is encrypted, the firewall is completely blind to what's inside. We've essentially handed the burglar the blueprints to a secret tunnel running right underneath our own moat.
And that leads us to Section 4, the Zero Trust Shift.
Because that traditional perimeter has pretty much dissolved into this messy mix of cloud services and remote work, and because firewalls are so easily bypassed now, the whole industry is undergoing a massive paradigm shift. The new core mantra? Never trust, always verify. This dictates that you literally cannot automatically trust anything, even if it's already inside your network. Just because a user is sitting there on the corporate Wi-Fi absolutely does not mean they aren't a compromised threat.
To actually pull this off, you need a few core tenets. First up, you have to assume a breach is already happening. Seriously, assume they're already in. Second, enforce least privilege access. This means users only get the exact bare minimum permissions they need to do their specific job, and nothing more. Third, micro-segment the network. Think of it like putting watertight doors on a submarine. If an attacker gets in, they're trapped in one small zone and can't move laterally. And finally, continuously verify the identity and the security posture of the device. Instead of one big moat, Zero Trust means literally every single room in the castle requires a continuous, real-time ID check.
Finally, let's hit Section 5, Modern Endpoint Security.
So, if we can't trust the network perimeter anymore, how do we practically enforce all this strict verification at the actual source of the work? Well, we shift our defensive focus directly to the endpoints. We're talking laptops, servers, the phones in our pockets. We're moving way beyond traditional antivirus. That old stuff relied on signature-based detection, which is basically just checking files against a known list of bad software. But today, attackers use crazy, novel, fileless malware that literally has no signature. So, we upgrade to EDR, or Endpoint Detection and Response. EDR provides continuous behavioral monitoring. It's looking for sketchy behavior, not just bad files, and it isolates threats in real time.
Now, to actually manage the absolute mountain of telemetry data coming off those endpoints, modern platforms bring in artificial intelligence. And guys, this isn't just a minor upgrade. It's a real game changer. It's a massive shift from slow, manual reactions to instant automated intelligence. AI analyzes these massive data volumes to spot anomalies, block evasive files, and most importantly, it reduces incident response times from hours down to literal milliseconds. The system can isolate a compromised laptop the exact fraction of a second it starts behaving maliciously. It's pretty incredible.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to think back to where we started. Consider your own organization's cyber maturity and ask yourself this one final question. Are you still trusting an outdated perimeter, or are you actively verifying your endpoints? The evolution of enterprise networks demands that we move beyond the old castle and moat and truly embrace continuous, automated verification. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope it gives you a much clearer picture of the modern cybersecurity landscape.